What's up, people, and welcome back to the dungeon for the next episode in our Stranger Things spoilercast / review. This is season 3, and admittedly, this is my least favorite season. And there's several reasons why. I just feel like, for me personally, what makes the first couple of seasons so completely perfect is just the fact that the kids are kids. They're little kids, and there's like just a fun innocence to them as characters. It's that whole Goonies vibe. And in 3, they're teenagers. They're growing up, they're getting older, and teenagers are just kind of awful. And we see that with how Mike and Elle treat Hopper, and just that whole, change of life, that whole puberty, everything's changing. Will gets cranky about it because Lucas and Mike, all they care about is their girlfriends, and Will's still a kid, and he doesn't care about girls, and he just wants to hang out and be a kid, and everybody else has grown up. Also, it takes place in the summertime, and I can't stand summer. Just a weird thing about me personally. I hate summer. It's my least favorite season. It's just hot and miserable, and I think everybody else is so like gung-ho and pro summer, which just makes me hate it more. But yeah, season 3, my least favorite. It does have a few things, a few moments, a few interesting things about it that make it worth watching at least once. Inspirations, things that were, I feel, clearly like inspirations that the Duffers used in this season. Some Honey, I Shrunk the Kids from the weird door gate opener machine that they use. Looks very much like the Solinsky's shrink ray. I don't know what to call it. The machine. If you've seen Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, you know what I'm talking about. The machine that does the shrinking. The machine that the Russians are using to open the gate in this season looks a lot like that. Obviously, we get some Terminator here. They're not subtle about it. There's just a straight up Arnold Schwarzenegger cosplayer stomping around, talking with an accent and everything. He also kind of gives off an Ivan Drago vibe, mainly because he's Russian, also because he's got like a flat top and he's just a huge dude. So he comes across with that whole "I must break you" type of energy. This one feels a lot more Scooby-Doo than the other 2 seasons, as far as like Nancy and Jonathan just kind of investigators trying to figure out what's going on, what's causing it, where and when and how and all that sort of stuff. It just kind of, I don't know, it smacks of Scooby-Doo and that whole thing. The whole Billy and Mrs. Wheeler dynamic is just wildly inappropriate, but it's fun to watch. I mean, every teenage boy had that fantasy of hooking up with an older woman, so that whole thing's kind of fun to watch, even though it's kind of short-lived. All the rats, the whole rat monster, rat jello goo meat monster thing, that's weird. That's real weird. And that's probably one of the only things that I felt made this season kind of stand out and be kind of its own unique thing. We get the mall, the whole big strip mall thing. One of my most prominent standout memories of childhood was going to the mall. That's where you went when you wanted to do anything or see anybody, like that's where you went and that's what you did. You went to the mall and you hung out. You went to all the stores, all the like Hastings and Sam Goodies and Best Buys and Spencer's Gifts. Hot Topic, of course, that was a big one back in my younger days. Hopper and his dad energy in this one is just everything to me. That's probably the number one thing that makes this season watchable for me personally. He's got that whole, if you're gonna date my daughter, like when your daughter brings home her boyfriend for the first time and dad's sitting there cleaning his gun. He's over the top with his dad energy in this one, and I just absolutely love it. They introduced Erica Sinclair in season 2. That's Lucas's little sister. And she didn't have a lot of screen time in season 2, but what little she had, she just shined bright like a diamond. That girl is just a treasure, and she gets a whole lot more screen time in this one, and it's everything. It's just so well deserved. Hats off to her. She is so great. She just kills it in every scene she's in. She just makes me cry, laugh. She's just the greatest. But yeah, that's going to kind of do it for the initial spoiler-free, just a kind of initial thoughts and feelings. How I felt about the season. Not a huge fan. It has its moments. It's worth watching. You kind of got to if you want to stay in the know of where they're at in the story. But this here starts the spoiler portion of the episode. So if you don't want to be spoiled, feel free to click off and come back later. Or if you want just a quick recap of the story to get caught up and be all up in the know for the final season when it drops in November, keep it right here because I got you covered. We start with some scientists doing some stuff. There's some sort of big cylindrical gadget, looks like a battering ram. All kinds of lightning and whatnot's pouring out of it, and it's shooting just a white hot laser into a wall, and the wall splits open, and it kind of unzips in a familiar way, and we see little tentacles come out, just kind of woo, like those weird tongue worm things that the monster had in Tremors. Remember that? That was a weird one. But anyway, that's going on. The machine malfunctions, breaks down, and they go to turn it off, and it just kind of overloads, and it just disintegrates everybody in the room in just a crazy Matrix-esque type of bullet time scene where everything just kind of goes into slow-mo, and it just shows the weird like electricity just kind of arcing out and just frying everybody. So that's kind of crazy. We get like the general guy, like the head honcho dude. He's a little displeased by everything that goes down, and so he grabs the head scientist guy and just kills him. Just super kills him. Kind of reminds me of Star Wars when Vader was just kind of going nuts and killing every leader. Like every military leader, he would just force choke him to death, and then the next one would step up and take his place, and he'd be like, "Don't fail me, or else." But yeah, so that guy's super dead, and there's another scientist dude standing there with curly hair and glasses, and I guess he gets a promotion, so he's in charge now. Hooray! Camera pulls back and goes outside. It's very snowy, and we find out that they're in the motherland of Russia. And here we kind of establish that maybe all these rumors that we were hearing in Season 1, and especially in Season 2, maybe all this talk of Russia was actually a thing. Who knows? But yeah, it's kind of wild to me that looking back in the 80s, we were into it with Russia then. Flash forward 40 years, and here we are, and we're still into it with them. And it's kind of like, hey, Russia, quit being stupid. Like, figure your life out. Straighten up. Get your act together. The rest of the world, we're kind of sick of you. Knock it off. But anywho, we bounce back over to Hawkins, catch up with all our people. Dustin's just coming back. He's been away at like science camp for a while. So he's coming back to town and he's excited to see his buddies. And he gets there and it seems like they've just forgotten all about him. He's been trying to raise them on his little walkie-talkie radio. Nobody's answering. He gets there and nobody's can't find any of them. They're just all super missing. And a bunch of his toys come to life. And kind of reminds me of those movies Puppet Master. But a lot of his toys come walking into his room, and he just kind of follows them as they creepily walk slowly out of the room. And he follows them, and we see that Eleven's controlling them, because of course she is. And they're all, her and Mike and Will and Lucas and Max are all there, and they're kind of like hiding around the corner, and they jump out and they surprise him with a "Welcome back, we missed you, hooray," all of that type of stuff. He tells them that he invented a new fancy radio that can communicate with anyone, just anywhere, just around the world. Apparently, it's super awesome, and they take off on a hike, like to hike up the tallest hill in Hawkins. So he's gonna set up this giant radio, and he's gonna use it to get in touch with his new girlfriend. And they're like, "Girlfriend? What? That's crazy." And he's like, "Oh yeah, she's great. She's the best. She's super hot, and she's like the smartest person ever, and she's cool." And they're all like, "Uh-huh." And she's real? And he's like, "Oh yeah, just so real." And they don't believe him, but they're just kind of playing along. Hopper is put on probably a solid 60 pounds since season 2. He's just really going ham on those potato chips and beer. He's in love with Magnum PI, and he's rocking the whole just like mustache, just the mustache, which was just overly popular in the 80s for reasons I'll never understand. But he's doing that, and it's a look that he chose. But so he's that's what he's got going on. And meanwhile, Max and 11 are just making out constantly, just all the time, sucking face. And you know, he's your typical dad, old school dad. He's not having any of it, so he keeps seeing it and freaking out and jumping all over him, and they try to act like nothing's happening, and he's not stupid, and he's like, "You keep that door open 3 inches. I'm warning you." And Mike's just being such a rude, like condescending, just jerk, just like clearly making fun of Hopper, like with him standing right there. He'll just like whisper to 11 and just like pss, 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 and she starts giggling, which just makes Hopper even madder. And all this is great because it's just like, it's, again, if you're a parent and if you have kids, especially a daughter, you get it. Like, you've been here, you know what this is like, and it's maddening. But he's losing it. He doesn't know what to do, so he goes to Joyce for advice. And we kind of established that they've gotten closer. Hopper's kind of confiding in her a lot. And there's clearly some chemistry there, some affections. He asks her what to do, and she kind of gives him a pep talk and writes out a speech for him to give Mike and 11 later. It's like stuff about like, I want to be open and honest about our feelings and communication and build trust, and this whole touchy-feely speech that anyone that knows Hopper would know he did not come up with. But anyway, Joyce helps him with that, and he asks her out, and she kind of tells him no, because she's still just not okay. She's not over the loss of Bob. Poor Samwise getting chewed up by a bunch of demi-dogs in season 2. It still kind of has her traumatized, and she's still struggling emotionally, to say the least. And the power keeps like randomly flickering throughout town, and magnets are just randomly falling off of surfaces, just losing their magnetism, and that's kind of weird. But everyone thinks it's perfectly fine and normal, except Joyce. She's just, when she has a problem with something, when she thinks something's fishy, she goes at it with everything she's got. She's tenacious like that. So she goes home and she like makes herself a TV dinner or something, pours herself a glass of wine, and she's watching Cheers and reminiscing about sitting there with Bob watching Cheers, and in a scene that's just kind of tugs on your heartstrings. If you've ever loved and lost, you've been where she is. She's just not okay. Billy is now the lifeguard because, again, it's summertime. We're coming up on like Independence Day, so everybody's going to the local pool, and Billy's the lifeguard, of course, and all the moms in town just line up, and they're just so thirsty. Every single one of them. They've been just lost on a desert island without a drop to drink, and here comes Billy, and they're just doing things to this poor kid with their eyes that shouldn't be legal. And Mrs. Wheeler, she's there, and she's probably the thirstiest of all of them. And Billy's watching her swim around, and Billy kind of he would like a drink too. He's a little thirsty himself. So him and Mrs. Wheeler have a little talk where Billy's like, "You're looking good out there," and she's like, "Oh, well, thanks. You're looking good too." And he's like, "I know. It's me, Billy. I've got a like mustache and super curly hair." He mentions that he gives private swimming lessons to select clientele, and he knows a motel just off of such and such road, and she should meet him there at such and such time. And she's like, maybe I will. Dustin and crew still hiking up the hill, just the tallest hill, and they get there and start setting up the radio, and Dustin tries to call his girlfriend, and of course she doesn't answer. And all his friends, everybody's like, well, clearly you're lying and you're making this up. And he's like, no, I'm sure she's just like probably, I don't know, eating or something. Maybe she's busy or doing homework, or I don't know, homework in the summertime, maybe getting a jump start on the next year. I don't know. She's super real. Like, I wouldn't lie. Steve is working in the mall at an ice cream shop, and he has a new coworker named Robin. She's kind of like a nerdy type, like she's in the school band, and not his typical kind of girl, not the type that he usually goes for. But Dustin's like, she's pretty great, you should totally go for her. And he's like, no, she's not my type. And Dustin's like, get over yourself, she's great. So Dustin intercepts a message with his fancy super radio in a foreign language that he can't understand. And so he's telling Steve about it. And Steve's like, okay, that's weird, what do you want? Like, what am I supposed to do about it? And Dustin's like, it's obviously Russian. We've got Russian spies in Hawkins. And Dustin's like, all right, well, that's quite a leap in logic. Pretty crazy of you to say, but I guess it is the 80s, so we just all assume that the Russians are out to get us at all times. We learn that apparently Robin knows Russian. Just coincidentally, she can totally decipher this message. And she does. And she breaks it down into what they're saying, but then she has to decipher the code, because there's even though she's broken it down into what it means in English, it's still in code, and so she's trying to figure that out. Billy is driving to meet up with Mrs. Wheeler for swimming lessons, and he's looking at himself in the rear view mirror, as a conceited, overly cocky, super full of yourself jerk would do, and he hits something, and it smashes into his windshield, and he fishtails and spirals out of control and crashes his car. And he gets out to look at his car, and something grabs him and pulls him into this building, this metal works, this like abandoned like factory looking thing, and just grabs him by the ankles and pulls him in there. And that episode ends with him screaming. Mrs. Wheeler was totally going to meet him. Like, she was getting dressed. I mean, she was all in. Heels, the makeup, just all the things. She was all on board, and walks down the stairs. She even takes her wedding ring off, because you can't be wearing rings when you get swimming lessons. That rock will just weigh you down. You could very well drown. Who knows? But yep, she's headed down the stairs, and she sees her husband and youngest child curled up in the recliner there taking a nap, and she has just what they call a change of heart. That tiny little thing in the back of your brain that some call a conscience speaks up, and it's like, hey, guess what, lady? You're married. You can't just be out here screwing young lifeguard fellas. You can't just go sleep with the pool boy. What are you thinking? So Billy comes running out of the darkness of this building, and gets to his car, which just magically starts, even though he super duper wrecked it earlier. It's fine. It's working now. So he gets in the car and he takes off driving. He gets to a nearby payphone, and he's calling for help, and everything just all of a sudden, pow! Everything's dark and creepy looking, and we know he's in the Upside Down, but he's never been here before, so he doesn't know what's going on. He just hears a voice, and he walks out in the road, and he's like, "Who are you? Who's there?" And he sees a crowd of people come walking down the street, and he comes face to face with himself. And the other him is just all creepy, and basically we find out that Billy has been, I don't know, assimilated. If this was Star Trek, he's now a member of the Borg. He's become a member of the collective. He's been brainwashed and, I don't know, possessed like Will was in season 2. So Hopper's gonna have his little chat with Eleven and Mike, and this scene absolutely kills me, because he sits down and he's like, "I need to talk to the two of you," and he just spaces out for a solid 30 seconds of just thick awkwardness. Just completely off the rails, just gets lost and has no idea what to say. And Eleven and Mike are just sitting there staring at him like, okay. And so Mike leans over and whispers something to Eleven, clearly making fun of Hopper right there in front of him, and he just loses it. He's like, "Mike, your mom called. Your grandma's dying. You gotta go home." And so he gets him in the vehicle, and Mike's just freaking out. He's like, "What's wrong with Nana?" And Hopper locks the doors, and he's like, "Nothing's wrong." And he's like, "You lied to me? How dare you?" And he's just super duper disrespectful and rude and snarky and just a punk teenager. And Hopper's like, "You're gonna listen to me. I'm gonna talk, and you're gonna listen." And he does that terrifying, "You're dating my daughter" voice. That horrifying, "We're gonna have a talk, you and I." And he's like, "And maybe, if you're lucky, when we're done, I might consider to let you continue dating my daughter. And Mike's just looking at him with that horrified deer in headlights expression. And he's like, not if you agree with me. He speeds off. And, oh, it's just great. If you're a dad, like, you'll love this scene. So, Mike, having been scared out of his mind and basically threatened with his mortality, he's supposed to meet up with 11 the next day. He doesn't show, so she calls him, and she's like, hey, you're late, what's going on? And he makes up a bunch of lies, and he's like, oh yeah, Nana's super sick. And she's like, I thought that was a lie. I thought she was fine. And he's like, oh yeah, well, she was fine, but now she's not, and she's really sick, so I can't see you today. So 11 takes off and goes to see Max, and her and Max start hanging out, and Max is like, yeah, he's totally lying to you. Yeah, Lucas, he lies to me all the time. It's what they do. Boys are stupid. You shouldn't let him treat you like that. Forget about them. Let's go to the mall. Let's go shopping. Make ourselves feel better. So they go on this whole fun teenage girl jaunt to the mall, and they're running around and taking glamour shots and buying stuff and doing this and doing that. And meanwhile, Mike and Lucas show up coincidentally at the same time to the same mall, and they're trying to figure out what to do to make things right with their ladies. And Lucas is like, we gotta buy him something, because that's the only thing that works. You gotta buy him things. So Mike and Lucas and Will, he's there too. He's just kind of a third wheel. He's just kind of there. Thing about Will, feels kind of sorry for the kid. He's just doesn't fit in or belong. Like, even his crew that he used to fit in with have kind of moved on in life, and they're all he's got. And so he's like, well, I guess I'll just kind of follow y'all around while you do your thing, and I'll just kind of be back here in the background the whole time. Just kind of like your shadow. But yeah, Mike's trying to find something to buy for 11, and he can't come up with anything because he's got like $5 or something, and that's just not how capitalism works. Everything costs a fortune, even in the 80s. So Max and 11 are leaving the mall. They run into Lucas and Mike and Will, and they're outside chit-chatting. They kind of run into each other, and 11's like, what are you doing here? I thought your grandma was dying. And he's like, oh, snap. So she's like, you lied to me. You keep lying to me. And he's like, no, I'm not. And Max is like, yeah, you totally are. You're a liar. Y'all suck. And Mike's like, no, I would never. Everything's fine. I'm fine. You're fine. We're all fine. And 11's like, I dump your ass. And storms off. And Max is laughing, and Mike and Lucas are like, what? And it's funny. Dustin and Steve and Robin now are deciphering the Russian code, trying to figure out what it means, and they finally put it together, and they find out that it's coming from inside the mall. Robin has this whole Sherlock Holmes moment where she just, like, super investigator. That's what I'm saying, like, there's a lot of Scooby-Doo energy in this, because they just figure stuff out. But yeah, they figure out that it's coming from inside the mall. So they sneak around back where there's dudes with guns just kind of hanging out by like a shipping and receiving door. And they're like, well, that's kind of weird. Why do they have guns? What's going on? And they get back up in there, and they find that there's a duct, like a air conditioning ventilation duct that would probably lead to that door, like from the inside, so they can see what the guys with guns, what's going on, what they're guarding, and all of that sort of stuff. But nobody can fit. Dustin tries to climb up in there, and he's a thicker fella, so that doesn't work. So they're like, who is somebody small? So they recruit Erica Sinclair, and I've said it, I'll keep saying it. This girl is just, she may be like my favorite hidden gem character of this entire series. I don't know, Eddie is up there when we get to season 4, but Erica Sinclair, she's just a true diamond in the rough. But she's just got so much moxie and so much pizzazz and attitude. It's so great. But they get her, they bribe her with a lifetime of free ice cream or something. I forget what their arrangement is. They talk her into climbing up in there and shimmying through the air ducts and getting in there and unlocking the garage door, and they get up in there and they start snooping through all the crates and all the boxes and things, and there's some weird stuff in there that doesn't look like your typical mall delivery. And then all of a sudden the door shuts and the whole thing starts to move, and we find out that it's a giant elevator and it's going down. Uh-oh. So Nancy and Jonathan still together. She's like sneakily sleeping with him at the buyer's house, but climbing out the window the next morning, even though Joyce clearly knows it's happening. And also, Joyce isn't really the kind of parent that cares about what her kids are doing. She's just like, yeah, do whatever you want. I'm that kind of parent. I just want to be your buddy. I don't really care about, doing my job as an actual parent. But anyway, Nancy and Jonathan both are working at the local newspaper. They've got an internship. And Nancy, she's just kind of a glorified secretary, just kind of pouring coffee and going on food runs and picking up everybody's lunch and whatnot. But she doesn't want any of that. She wants to be a reporter. She wants to get in there and she wants to get the stories, and she wants to be all up in the scene and super involved, and of course at the time in the 80s we were still very men do the work and women prepare the food and make the coffee and answer the phones. Men are the one that do the work, and she's not having any of it. She's out on a mission to prove that a lady can do anything. She can do everything a man can do, and she might even be able to do it better. So her and Jonathan are out investigating some rumors. An old lady calls and says that she's got a weird diseased rat infestation going on, that they've been getting into her basement and eating all her fertilizer, and she caught one of them, and they're checking out this rat, and it's just spazzing smooth out. It's like it looks like a pinball inside this cage. It's just kind of bouncing off of all the things and freaking out and rolling around. And then we see that same building that Billy got pulled into. We see just hordes of rats. Just so many rats swarming to this place. Just straight in the door, down the weird little storm cellar looking thing, down the stairs, and they get down there and they're just all flopping around on the floor and like fish out of water, just rolling around and writhing. I guess that's a fun word. They're writhing, just kind of squirming around and having a bad time, and they're all just start popping like water balloons, and it's real gross. And I think the first time I watched this, I was like, ew! But yeah, that happens, and as the viewers, we're like, that's weird. What's going on there? Who knows? Maybe it'll explain it later. Moving on. So Nancy and Jonathan checking out the rats. They take the story back to the chief editor guy at the paper, and of course he makes fun of them. Like him and all the other guys, they just make fun of Nancy and her crazy story, and they just basically call her nuts and kick her out of the room. And he's like, do your job that you're paid for and leave the actual news to those that know what they're doing. And she gets all butthurt and storms out, and Jonathan's like, I kind of told you that was gonna happen. And he just doesn't get it because he's a guy, and he doesn't know what it's like. She can't do anything, and nobody takes her seriously because she's a woman. So she goes back and has a heart-to-heart with her mom, and it's a pretty touching scene. We get to see them kind of opening up to each other. And, we haven't really seen that yet. Her mom tried to get her to confide in her in season 1 when, things were going on with Steve, and Barbara went missing and she wouldn't open up to her. So it's kind of cool to see their relationship is on better terms now. Will keeps getting the neck tingles because he keeps reaching back there and rubbing his neck and getting the super wide, terrified, I'm scared out of my mind, things are going wrong eyes that he does, where he's just like that whole thing. And we all know that when he touches his neck, it's tingle time. So that's been going on. The same time the power goes out, he gets the tingles. So something's going on in Hawkins. So Eleven and Mike are broken up, and her and Max are palling around, and they decide to use Eleven's powers to spy on Mike and Lucas and see what they're up to and what they're saying. And of course, they're just being boys, and they're complaining about the girls and how they don't understand what they did wrong. And they both start burping and farting and laughing about it because they're boys. And Will's just over there in the corner being like, can we play D&D now? And they're like, shut up, no, nerd. So the elevator that Steve and Dustin and crew are in get to the bottom, and they get in there and they just find so many Russians. There's Russian soldiers everywhere, and there's this whole huge underground facility. There's some sort of giant some sort of big mechanical spinning log thing that's shooting fire out of it and burning a hole in the wall. That's weird. So they kind of get found out, and the chase is on, and Steve and Robin are holding the door shut, and they tell Dustin and Erica to escape, and they do. So Steve and Robin get captured, and Russian dudes are interrogating him, and they're beating the hell out of Steve, and he's not coughing up any information because he's like, I don't know what to tell you guys. We found your code. We deciphered it because y'all think you're so smart and so secretive, and we broke it in a day. Like, we're kids, and we decrypted your super secret message in a day. So, haha, the joke's on you. So they drug Steve and Robin with some sort of truth serum stuff that makes them all kinds of loopy, and they still don't give up any information because they really don't have any info to give, except Dustin's home address. He tells the guy that, and probably shouldn't have, but anyway, Dustin and Erica come back with a stun gun to save the day, and they cut them loose, and they get out, and they get back up the elevator, and they escape. They get back out there, and they're just drunk and laughing, and it's funny. So Billy starts recruiting people, and by recruiting I mean kidnapping people and taking them into the Metal Works building, and they become part of the collective. We've seen a couple of times now, just in the shadows, a figure. We haven't really seen it clearly yet, but some sort of big monster looming in the distance that's it's clearly kind of pulling the strings and calling the shots. The kids figure out that Billy has been possessed. He's working for the Mind Flayer, and they're confused because 11 closed the gate, and Will's like, yeah, but what if the part of him that was in our world that was inside me when she closed the gate. Maybe it stayed behind, and maybe it's still here. So they start following Billy around and spying on him and just kind of creepily. You know, I've noticed that in this show, in each season, there's some creepy stalker behavior going on. The first season, we get Jonathan just creepily taking pictures of Nancy, just hiding out in the bushes and taking pictures of her, like getting undressed, and that's weird. And then we get Lucas and Dustin creepily stalking Max in season 2. And in 3, just all of them. All of the kids are creeping on Billy. And so yeah, they're watching him. He's at work at the pool. And they're like, I mean, he seems pretty normal to me. And Max is like, when have you ever known him to wear a shirt? And they're like, yeah, that is pretty weird. And so he's acting strange. So they put together this plan that they're going to, at the end of the day, at the end of his shift, they're going to kind of lock him up in there and somehow force him into the sauna and lock the door and crank it up, because we established that the Mind Flayer doesn't like it hot. He likes it cold. So we'll do to Billy what we did to Will at the end of season 2. We'll just kind of hot box it and just kind of smoke him out. So they do it. And the 11 shows up and mind powers Billy into the sauna, and they lock the door and they crank the heat up and they start cooking him real good, like a Thanksgiving turkey. The same old lady that had called Nancy she's in the hospital, and Nancy is there in the hospital room with the old lady because she doesn't know how to just leave well enough alone. She can't just do what her boss told her and knock it off and quit snooping around. So she's in there reading the woman's chart and trying to figure out what happened to her, and the woman starts acting real weird, wakes up and starts screaming, and she gets these crazy like black veins all over, like she's got the Venom symbiote in her, and she's just gonna turn into a web slinging superhero. Billy's in the sauna screaming, and the Mind Flayer takes over, and he gets all super jacked, and he starts like shoulder checking the door, just like bum rushing it and football tackling the door, and he knocks it off its hinges and comes out, and he starts grabbing everybody by their necks and smacking them around, and 11 picks him up and throws him through the wall. It's all super violent and cool, and it's a whole thing. A couple of the dudes from the newspapers, they show up. Their boss and Jake Busey, he's there too, just being Jake Busey. He's one of the newspaper editor guys. He's always making fun of her and giving her a hard time. Him and the boss are there, and they are possessed. They've become part of the collective, and so Nancy and Jonathan smack them around and knock them out, and then they start twitching and explode into goo, and both the goo piles are just kind of oozing down the hallway from opposite ends of the same hallway, right? Just kind of sludge monsters. Like, if you've ever played a Dark Souls game, there's always these gross sludge slime monsters that have, like, bones sticking out and stuff. Kind of reminds me of that. Just like an amoeba or like a slug. Just kind of oozing. And they come together and merge into one big goo pile that, like, grows legs and arms and stuff and turns into just a big nasty monster. And it comes after them. And Nancy is running from it, and she manages to get into a room and shut and lock the door. And we think, oh, okay, she's safe now. But the door has one of those weird, like, grates in it at the bottom for no reason at all, aside from for purposes of the story to move forward. It's just got, like, an air vent on it. And so the sludge monster just kind of oozes through the vent cover into the room and just rematerializes into the big monster thing. And the kids have heard the commotion, and so 11 comes to the rescue. And what kills me about 11, in this season especially, is anytime she uses her powers, the whole gang lines up behind her, like, I don't know, for moral support, but they're just always standing back there awkwardly, and she's just out in front. Like, I don't know. Literally anytime she uses her powers, that's how they shoot it. It's just like all the others are all lined up back here, like her entourage or like her hype squad. They're just like, yeah, 11, you get in there and you get them. But anyway, she knocks the door down and she comes up in there and she grabs the critter up with the force and she smacks it into this wall and throws it over here into that one and bounces it off the floor and throws it through the ceiling and tosses it out a window, and it's just having a real bad day. But it kind of oozes into a nearby sewer drain, and it goos its way through the sewers. It says hi to the Ninja Turtles as it squirms by, and it makes its way back down to the basement of the Metalworks building, and we see a shot of it kind of oozing across the floor, and we see a big leg come down, and it just kind of goos its way onto the foot of this thing and just kind of becomes part of its leg. And the camera comes up, and we see that it's the Mind Flayer. This thing's just kind of been slowly assimilating itself, just kind of slowly building itself a physical body out of exploded rats and melted people. It's very metal. It's just like, did Clive Barker make this season? Because it's very gross and very like hardcore. So Hopper was supposed to have a date with Joyce. He talked her into meeting him. They were gonna hash out, I don't know, something. Maybe what's going on in Hawkins. I don't know. They were going to talk about something. He's like, yeah, meet me at Enzo's at 7 o'clock. And it's not a date. Just two friends having dinner. It's fine. Don't overthink it. And so he's there, and he orders, like, so much booze. Like, he orders himself some shots of whiskey, and he gets, like, a bottle of wine for her, and these drinks and those drinks. And, of course, she doesn't come, because she's distracted. The magnets keep falling off the fridge, and she's just not having any of it. So she takes the magnets, and she goes to the kid's science teacher, and they're palling around, and she's asking him all these Bill Nye the Science Guy questions, trying to figure out what's going on. These magnets keep falling on. Like, we can't just be having magnets fall off of surfaces. How am I supposed to hang up my kids' homework? How am I supposed to pin my kids' doodles to the fridge? Like, we got to fix this. This is a serious problem. And so, science teacher kind of explains to her how an electromagnetic field works. And they find out that, like, there must be some sort of big electromagnetic disruption in Hawkins somewhere, powerful enough to screw everything up. So Hopper waits just long enough to drink all the booze that he ordered and get just super drunk. And he has an argument with the waiter, and he snatches up the bottle of wine and starts heading for the door, and the waiter's like, you can't take that out of here. And he's like, I'm the chief of police. I can do whatever I want. And it's funny. So he leaves. Joyce shows up the next morning banging on the door, and he's super hungover, and he lets her in. He's like, well, look who finally shows up. And he's just super butthurt about her standing him up, and she's trying to explain to him, like, there's something super weird and fishy going on in Hawkins, and we got to figure it out. And they're clearly on two different wavelengths. Like, he's just mad about her standing him up at the restaurant, and she couldn't care less about that. She's over here freaking out about magnets, and it's just like, we got to get on the same page. And finally, she just, like, grabs some stuff and starts heading for the car, and he's like, where are you going? And she's like, I'm going to the lab. I know they're behind it. this all reeks of them, and they're up to no good. And he's like, they're done, they're gone, it's locked, it's deserted, like it's over. And she's like, nope, I'm going. And so he goes with her, and they get there, and he takes out the bolt cutters, and he cuts the chain lock off, and they throw the doors open, and they get up in there, and she has like a PTSD moment where she walks in the door and sees Bob getting eaten by a demi-dog there. And we're like, oh yeah, she's still clearly very emotionally and mentally damaged by seeing her dude just get eaten alive by dogs from another dimension. But they get up in there and they're snooping around, and this is when the Terminator shows up out of nowhere, and he just beats the hell out of Hopper, just smacks him around real good. It's almost like watching a Rocky movie. Like, he just beats the crap out of him. And of course gets on a motorcycle and leaves. What else is the Terminator gonna ride around on? So he takes off out of there on his bike. Joyce manages to get Hopper home, and he wakes up with quite a concussion, and he's naked for some reason. He's like, he just stands up, and his business is just like right there in Joy's face, and she's just like, whoa, and she's like acting like she doesn't like it, but we all know that she's like, hey. And he's like, why am I naked? And she's like, you were super wet. All your clothes were wet. And so that means I had to strip you down. And I didn't do anything to you while you were unconscious. I would never. She's asking him if he got a good look at the guy that jumped him. And he's like, I've seen him before. And so he heads to the courthouse to have a chit chat with the mayor. And the mayor is, I'm blanking on his name, but it's the guy that played Robin in Robin Hood Men in Tights. He's also the main dude in The Princess Bride. He was the doctor guy in the first Saw movie, the one that cut his foot off at the end. Spoilers for Saw 1. But yeah, takes a hacksaw and cuts his foot. That guy. Anyway, he's the mayor. Hopper has a chat with him about, hey, looking for a guy. I've seen him here, and of course the mayor's trying to play coy and be like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, he came out of, he was here. He was here, I know he was here, you know he was here, quit being stupid and tell me who he is. And he's like, oh, that's probably the maintenance man. Yeah, well, we've had a lot of leaky pipes around here. And he's like, no, try again. I saw him coming out of your office. So you know who this guy is, and you're gonna tell me. And he's like, you can't make me do anything. And so Hopper locks the door and just starts smacking the mayor around. Just breaks his nose and just beats him up like a bully at any school, just picking on the local nerd for his lunch money. He finally gives up the information, and he tells Hopper, hey, you don't want to snoop around in this. You don't want to get involved in this. These guys mean business. And so he takes him to his house where he's got all these secret files about these people buying up all this land around town. And so Hopper smacks him around a few more times just for good measure and leaves him handcuffed to his bed. And so Hop and Joyce go for a road trip, and they're going around town investigating all these houses and all these properties that have been bought. And they finally find one, and it's an old empty house, but there's a bed. There's like an eerie glow coming from underneath it, so they lift it up, and there's like a whole like weird scientific laboratory type thing underneath there. And they find a scientist guy with glasses, and then Terminator shows up and shoots up the joint, and they manage to escape with weird nerdy scientist guy that only speaks Russian. So they need to figure out what's going on, and Hop's like, I may know a guy. So they go to talk to Murray. We remember Murray from season 2 that Nancy and Jonathan went to talk to. The crazy conspiracy nut guy. The one that kind of weirdly coaxed Jonathan and Nancy into hooking up in a really kind of awkward, uncomfortable scene where he's kind of sort of hitting on him. But anyway, so Hop and Joyce show up at Murray's with this Russian scientist guy because Murray just happens to know Russian. So they get in there and they're having him translate, and they're asking him where the machine is, and he's like, shut up, I'm not going to tell you. Anyway, they go back and forth and they play cat and mouse, and they finally get him to talk, and he tells them that the machine's in the mall, and but he's the only one that knows how to shut it down. You need 2 keys, and you got to do this and you got to do that, yada yada la-di-da. Joyce and Hop and scientist guy and Murray all hit the road to go back to Hawkins and save the day. They stop at the like Independence Day celebration thing that's going on. It's like a I don't know, like a local fair, like circus type thing. And Terminator shows up, shoots scientist guy. Him and Hopper square off, and in a very rocky scene where they're just slugging it out, Hopper, Joyce, and Murray manage to escape. They meet up with the kids as they always do toward the end of the season, where the main characters have their meetup where they get together and they just kind of chit chat and catch up on what everybody's been up to. So they put a big plan together, and Hop is gonna get up into the mall and he's gonna shut it down and put an end to this. He's like, you kids stay here and stay safe, because Eleven's got the superpowers. We don't need her to get caught by the Russians. Hopper, Joyce, and Murray, they're going to break into the mall, and they jump some Russian soldiers and take their outfits, and they get up in there because Steve and crew, they've already been in there, so they remember how to do it, how to get there, and they're all going to communicate, chit-chat over the walkie-talkies, over the radios. Murray's code name is Bald Eagle, and it's pretty funny. Billy and his gal pal are talking about everything that's going down and how the kids have figured out what's going on, and they're gonna try to stop them. And Billy's like, well, it must be time. And so all the possessed people start just walking up to the monster in the basement one at a time, and as they approach, they start convulsing and just kind of explode into goo and sludge their way into its legs, and the big meat monster just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and it busts up out of the ground like a freaking kaiju, like some sort of Godzilla monster. So the Mind Flayer meat monster shows up at Hopper's cabin where all the kids are hanging out, and they're gonna try to fend it off with axes and shotguns, and Eleven's there with her powers. The thing keeps punching holes through the walls with the weird tentacles that look, again, like the thing from Tremors, and 11 keeps mind powering them, but they keep coming from every direction, and she finally gets grabbed. One of them grabs her leg and bites her real good, and Nancy manages to shoot it in the face and scare it away, and but 11's hurt. She's hurt real bad. They pull this tentacle thing off, and they find that there's some sort of a critter inside her ankle, just crawling around in there. You can see it like moving around under the skin. So she's hurt real bad. So they go to like a local convenience store or something, some sort of like little grocery store or something. They break up in there, and they're trying to find supplies and whatnot to fix 11's mutilated foot. Or I guess maybe it's the mall. I know they get to the mall. It's not. I don't know. Her foot's hurt. They bandage it. Jonathan gets a knife and cuts her ankle open, and 11 uses her force powers to pull this critter out of her flesh wound and throws it across the room, and Hopper stomps on it. I guess that's when they meet up. They meet up at the mall because like this thing looking like is it Thing from Adam's Family? It's not Cousin It, that's the hair guy. So I think Thing is the hand. But that's what this thing looks like. That it she throws it across the way and it lands on the floor and it gets up and starts crawling away, and a foot comes down and mashes it real good, and it's Hopper. He's here. And this is where we get our whole meet-up scene. But anyway, they meet up, they hash out a plan. They're going to do this, and they're going to do that, and they're going to go over here. So the Mind Flayer meat monster shows up at the mall, and it comes crashing through the skylight, and it lands there in Star Court, the big, like, the food court area. And the kids are hiding from it because 11 just all of a sudden can't use their powers. Because, you know, foot injuries will do that to you. They start lighting fireworks and throwing at it, and it's very bright and flashy and pretty cool to look at visually. There's a lot going on here that I appreciate. Also, when they explode, they put out heat, and we know that this thing doesn't like heat, and so Billy doesn't like the heat, and he's here too, by the way. They tried to get in the car and leave, and he is outside in the parking lot in his fancy muscle car, revving the engine, as, you know, muscle car guys do. 11 manages to, like, I don't know, get through to him, maybe with some telepathy, but she's kind of lost her powers at this point, so I'm not real sure how she does this. Somehow manages to get through to Billy and tells him what she saw in his mind, like in his memories, and kind of breaks through to him. And so Billy has a moment of lucidity where he breaks away from the Mind Flayer's control, and he stands up to it, and it just impales him with all these tentacles and meat spears, and different things are stabbing and biting, and just kill Billy super dead. Just dead. All kinds of dead. Max is standing back there watching. She's very upset about it. Or is she? We don't know yet. Those two never really got along that well, so we'll see what happens with that. But Billy, super dead. Joyce and Murray and Hop get up into the Russian super lab, and they're snooping around, and they're doing this and they're doing that, and they're fighting soldiers, and they're gonna turn the keys, but then the Terminator shows up, and him and Hop square off again. And they're fighting, and they're throwing punches, and they're doing this, and they're doing that, and they're fighting out there on the balcony next to the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids machine. Joyce does a cool, like, MacGyver thing where she, like, wraps her belt around one of the keys and gets a hold of the second key with her fingers, and she's going to turn both keys at the same time, but she can't because she knows when she does, the thing's going to, like, explode, and Hopper's out there beside it, and if he's there when she does the thing, then he's going to get fried, and it's a whole thing, and she doesn't want it to happen, so she's just kind of chilling out and waiting, and Hopper manages to grab Terminator Guy, and he pulls him in close, and he's like, I'll see you in hell, and he throws him into the spinning Honey, I Shrunk the Kids machine, and just explodes him, shreds him into just explodes like a water balloon filled with ketchup. Just kind of, it's really cool. And then Hopper gets up, and he looks, and he can't go this way because of the laser beam, and he can't go back this way because of all the electricity and stuff coming off of it, and so he's kind of trapped. And so he looks at Joyce, who's in the window, just creepily staring at him, as characters do in the show. He looks at her, and he gives her the nod to do it, kind of like Bruce Willis in Armageddon, where he's like, we win, Gracie, and then he pushes the button and blows himself up, and we all cried way too much. So he gives Joyce the nod, she turns the keys, the machine freaks out and explodes, the gate closes, the camera pans over, and everything's just burnt, and Hop's gone. And we all know that when the machine freaks out, it disintegrates everything in the room. So Hop's gone. He's dead. He's been fried. He's disintegrated. He doesn't exist anymore. He's out of here. And so Joyce is very sad. She starts crying. Murray shows up and grabs her, and they escape. Meanwhile, back in the food court, the meat flayer, it spazzes out, and it crashes into this pillar and that wall, and it flips out, and it falls over dead because the gate's closed, and we all know Without a connection to the upside down, the critters over here can't function. Everything just dies. So the kids are safe. Billy's dead, so that kind of sucks. But we never really liked him to begin with, so we're kind of okay with it. So then we get a scene where I guess Eleven's gonna live with Joyce. Also, Joyce there had been some mention earlier that she was gonna leave Hawkins. She's kind of just fed up with all this supernatural business, all these weird extra-dimensional meat monsters and demon possessions and all this stuff and mind powers and what have you. So she's gonna move. She's gonna go anywhere else. They're kind of all at the house, at the Byers' house. Oh, I left out the most important thing. The most important thing. The number one thing that make me kind of like this season. One of the only redemption aspects of this season. So Joyce and Hopper, they get into the lab, right? They're supposed to access this thing, but they need a combination. They need this numerical code. And Dustin thinks he knows it. He tells them the code. They put the code in. It doesn't work. They've got to figure out what this code is. And they have to find somebody that will know it. Right. Well, Dustin can only think of one person. That's right. He's got to get in touch with Susie. Who's Susie? His girlfriend. Because you know what? She does exist. She is real. She's out there. So Dustin gets on his super radio and he calls Susie. And he's like, hey there, honey bunch. I need the code. You know what it is, right? And she's like, yeah, but if you want it, you'll have to do the thing. And he's like, please, no. Don't make me do it. And she's like, if you gotta do it, you do it or you don't get the code. So Dustin just starts a cappella singing, that's right, the theme from the Never-Ending Story. And then Susie joins in and they start harmonizing and they do the song and it's everything. Like, this moment makes me smile from ear to ear every single time. It's so good. If you're an 80s kid, this moment hits so hard. It hits you in all the feels. All of them. You just feel like you're wrapped up in a nice warm blanket. But anyway, we go back to the Byers' house. Hopper's dead. Billy's dead. Meat Flayer monster's dead. Weird Honey, I Shrunk the Kids laser machine dead. Everything's dead. But those that aren't dead, back at the Byers' house, they're packing everything up. Lucas and Max are packing a box, and they're singing the Never-Ending Story. And Dustin's in the other room, giving them, like, I hate you eyes. And they're clearly just singing it to make fun of him, because it was a very funny ha-ha moment. But Joyce finds some of Hopper's stuff and a letter. He had a letter tucked into his shirt that was the speech that she had helped him write, that he was supposed to give to Mike and Eleven. This whole heartfelt talk that never happened. And Eleven walks in the room and finds Joyce with this letter, and she's like, is that from Hopper? And she's like, yeah. And she's like, can I read it? And she's like, yeah. And we get a scene here. Gotta collect myself. We get a scene here that makes me full-on ugly cry every time. Where Hopper's narrating this speech as Eleven's reading it. And it's so good. This is such a beautiful, emotional scene that just wrecks me. But he's just like, it starts off with him saying what Joyce had told him to say, but he gets about halfway through it and he stops. He starts saying what he actually feels, how he actually feels about everything, about himself, about his relationship with Eleven, about how things are changing and she's growing up. And it's so good. And if you're a parent and you have kids and you get into it with those kids, they start to grow up and they start to develop their individuality and they start wanting their independence and you start butting heads, this scene hits. And yeah, anyway. So 11 and Jonathan and Will and Joyce are all leaving Hawkins. Steve and Lucas and Dustin and Max and Mike are staying behind. And that's how the season ends, with Joyce and her kids leaving, the others staying behind. We cut over to somewhere snowy, and it's a prison type vibe, and we see a couple of guards walking down a hallway, and they're talking in Russian, and we get subtitles, and one of them's gonna open a door, and the other one says, "No, not the American." And so they walk over to the next door, and they open it, and they grab a guy out of there, and they drag him down the stairs. They open this door, and they throw him in this big cage type thing, and lock him in there, and a side door opens, and in comes a Demogorgon. It just walks up in there and gobbles this guy up like a tasty snack. And that's how the season ends. We're like, is Hopper dead? Who's the American? Is Hopper the American? Also, what is happening? How is there a Demogorgon? I thought when we closed the gate, everything connected to the Upside Down just dies. So how is this thing alive over here in our world? What's going on? This is really weird. Also, Joyce and them left? What? What is the next season gonna be? That's crazy. Surely they're not gonna end the show like this. We're left with all kinds of questions, and we had to wait a long time to get answers to them. But we did. We finally got them. Season 4 finally showed up, and in a lot of ways it made up for a lot of the problems that I had with Season 3, but it introduces a lot of issues of its own that I'll get into in the next episode. But that is your Stranger Things Season 3 in review, and to rank this thing, it goes on the bottom. It goes on the bottom. Up to now, I've been given I gave Season 1 a 4.5 out of 5, Season 2 a 5 out of 5, but I think I kind of want to change how I've been doing it and rank them against each other instead. So how my ranking goes now is Seasons 2, 1, and 3. 2 at the top, 3 on the bottom. Where's Season 4 gonna go? You'll have to come back and find out. But that's gonna do it for now. Thanks for stopping by and watching this. You know I appreciate you. If you want to hang out for a second, there'll be some thumbnails pop up in the corners of the screen. That's some other stuff that I do. If you want to check any of that out, give those things a click. They'll be right there for you. Be sure and like, share, and subscribe if you haven't yet. Come back and join me next time, and until then, we'll catch you later.